Season 1, Episode 9. The Night the Door Remembered Us. The flyer appeared one morning, tacked to a lamppost that wasn't there yesterday. Gold ink, hand-inked script, scented faintly of smoked rosemary and candied lemon rind. It read, "Grand opening, smoke and soul, one night only, forever. Come if you've ever been hungry for more than food." No address, just a feeling. No one ever asked who printed it. No one ever asked who tacked it up. The lamppost itself stayed after, a small iron sentinel that had decided to exist so that a flyer could be hung, and then decided to keep existing because no one told it not to. That was already how the porch worked, though most of the guests didn't know it yet. They would, by morning. Most of them wouldn't call it that. They would just say, later, over kitchen tables in other houses, that they had gone somewhere strange on a Tuesday, and it had been the best meal of their lives, and they couldn't quite remember how to get back. They came not by GPS, but by longing. Tender-hearted humans with soft eyes and tired hands. A woman who hadn't danced in 20 years, but wore her best shoes anyway. A boy who brought a violin case but didn't open it, just held it close. The way a person holds a thing they have loved and not yet forgiven themselves for setting down. An older man in a clean shirt who had not been hungry in a long time, and did not expect to be hungry tonight either, and who would, in about 45 minutes, begin to weep quietly into a bowl of something he would not be able to name. The animal kin followed too. A dignified fox in a bowler hat who introduced himself as Percival Finch and spoke as if punctuation were a personal kindness. An otter in a waistcoat humming Otis Redding, Theodore if you asked, though most simply watched him hum and did not dare interrupt. Inside, smoke and soul glowed. Candles danced in reclaimed jars. Jazz curved through the rafters like steam. The menu read like a poem, each line a memory drizzled in glaze. The room had the quiet of a space that had waited a long time to be full, and was now full, and did not quite know what to do with the feeling. The wood listened. The walls, newly painted, gave off the faint warmth of rooms that have been loved into being. Brent sat at the piano, playing chords with bite, notes with hush. He had not expected to feel this, had expected to play and then sit quietly in a corner while his bear ran a restaurant. Instead, he was watching strangers walk through a door he had helped build and come out the other side changed, and he did not know what to do with his hands between songs, so he kept playing. Senti passed near him at one point, carrying 2 plates to a table, and Brent caught his eye between phrases.
They came. They actually came.
You built the door. They were always going to.
Brent kept playing. Senti greeted every guest by name, even if they hadn't told him yet. Glorp wore a cape, and no one questioned it. Halfway through the first seating, Senti paused at the pass. Glorp was at his elbow, plating something that steamed faintly of cinnamon and patience. Senti looked out at the room, the fullness of it, the hum, the way the candlelight seemed to have opinions. 43 guests, 2 more at the door. The child with a violin case ran his fingers across the case latch. The woman who had not danced in 20 years, now dancing. For the first time since Glorp had said the words smoke and soul and made them real, Senti felt the weight of what had opened tonight. Not doubt, not fear, just the quiet understanding that a thing loved into existence asks to be loved through its existence too.
It's a lot, isn't it?
It's exactly enough, cousin. You cooked for this.
Senti breathed once, slow, returned to the line, and then Brad the hyena arrived. He did not arrive like a person. He arrived like weather that had not learned to be indoors. First came the laugh, too loud, too early, and echoing like someone had tipped over a filing cabinet of emotions. He shoved past Percival, who did not flinch but did allow himself a long editorial blink. He sampled a rib straight off a tray. He heckled the piano mid-ballad.
Do you take requests or just trauma, piano man?
And somewhere between the heckle and his next breath, Brad palmed a spoon off a table setting, the kind of swipe a hyena makes without thinking, smirking at Brent as if daring him to name it.
Depends on the key you're wounded in.
A few of the guests laughed. Percival allowed himself a second blink. The jazz kept curving. Senti approached, calm but firm. He had never needed to raise his voice and wasn't about to now.
Brad, you know the rules.
What rules? This place smells like nostalgia got drunk and opened a food truck.
He reached for another plate. And that's when Glorp moved. No warning, no wind-up, just Glorp, all cosmic nonsense and hush, picking up Brad like a rogue souffle and launching him gently up the stairs, through the open front door, across the yard, arcing through the air like an emotionally unstable comet. He landed with a soft woof in a patch of moss and hay that hadn't existed 5 seconds prior. A rabbit in a tailored suit offered him a mint. Back in the restaurant, silence reigned. A full 3 seconds of it. The kind of silence that is not empty but alert. The kind a room holds when it is waiting to learn what kind of place it is going to be. Then someone coughed. Someone else laughed. A glass was set down. The jazz, which had paused in sympathy, resumed the phrase it had been on, as if it had simply been catching its breath. Senti turned to look at Glorp, who was already reshelving a spice jar with the serene posture of someone who had forgotten he had ever held a hyena.
Cousin, that was gentle.
He needed a short flight and a soft landing. I gave him both.
Just wow, cousin. You really just tossed him.
Senti did not ask more. He did not know yet what he would have asked. The evening carried on. Percival Finch ordered the duck confit and, several bites in, set down his fork and said, to no one in particular,
"Oh, well, this is quite divine, I must say."
The woman who had not danced in 20 years danced again. The boy with the violin case opened it finally, just enough to rest 2 fingers on the strings, and then closed it again, and then cried a little, and then ate. Theodore the otter hummed Otis through dessert, and did not stop humming even when his mouth was full, which should not have been possible, and in most rooms would not have been. Later, much later, as the candles dimmed and guests wandered back into whatever dimension they'd come from, Senti stood on the porch with a quiet smile. Brent played something slow, a thing he had been carrying for a long time and had finally found a room to set down in. Glorp was reorganizing the spice shelf alphabetically by emotional resonance. None of them spoke of Brad. But the porch knew. The porch always knew. Somewhere, in the yard beyond the lamplight, a hyena was sitting in a patch of moss that had not existed 5 seconds before he landed in it. And the moss was being kind to him, and he was not laughing now. He was not doing much of anything. He was, for the first time in a long while, not performing. Morning came the way mornings come to places that have been loved hard the night before, slowly and with grace. The porch was quiet. The candles were cold. The smoker was cooling. Somewhere inside, Senti was humming something Brent didn't recognize. On the porch, with a cup of coffee, Brent took a sip, looked out at the yard, spoke to no one in particular, or possibly to the coffee.
Did that actually happen?
The coffee did not answer. But the gate did, because at the gate there was a hyena. Brad was standing just past the last fence post, sunglasses off, hands at his sides, looking at the porch the way a person looks at a photograph of someone they used to know. He had been there, Brent suspected, for a while, possibly an hour, possibly since before dawn. Brad took one step, stopped, looked at the ground. Brent waited. Brad took another step, came up the path, stopped at the base of the porch stairs, one paw on the bottom step, and did not climb them. He looked up at Brent, and then past Brent, and then at the doorframe, as if checking it for something. When he spoke, it was not to Brent. It was to the house.
I was a jackass. I brought chaos where there was calm.
Brent did not answer. It wasn't his to answer. He just nodded once, the way a doorman nods a weary traveller toward the lobby. Senti appeared in the doorway with a dish towel over his shoulder and flour on one cheek, and the expression of a bear who had known Brad would come back before Brad had known it himself.
That's true.
I missed this place, and it wasn't even mine yet.
Senti nodded, did not smile, did not withhold. Brad reached into his vest and took out that spoon he had absconded with, half polished, a little scratched on the bowl. He held it out, not to Senti, but to Brent. His paw was shaking, just barely.
I tuned your piano a couple weeks ago. Thursday night, I think. You were asleep. I come by sometimes, at night. I don't take anything. I like how it sounds when no one's playing it. I tuned it because it was flat, on the B flat above middle C. It was bugging me. I wasn't trying to be... I didn't know how to tell you I liked the sound of your porch.
Brent set his coffee down very slowly, stood up, walked the 2 steps to the edge of the porch.
I thought it was me.
It wasn't.
The B flat was flat.
Brad nodded, just once. Brent reached down and took the spoon. It was warm from Brad's paw, and the warmth said more than the apology had.
Thank you.
Brad's shoulders dropped about 4 inches. Senti watched this from the doorway and said nothing, did not need to. Then he disappeared into the kitchen. He cooked for 12 minutes. Brent does not remember, later, what Senti did in that kitchen. He remembers the sound, the soft clatter of a pan set down with care, a drawer opening, the hiss of something meeting heat, a pause, another hiss. He remembers the smell, which arrived in layers, ginger first, then pear, then something smoked so gently it almost wasn't smoke at all, more like a memory of smoke, the way a field smells the morning after a bonfire. What Senti was doing was this. He was not performing forgiveness. He was assembling it. He was choosing each element the way a person chooses words for a letter they will only write once. Salmon, because salmon is a fish that returns. Herb flatbread, because bread is how you say sit. Blistered grapes, because Brad had never been served anything blistered in his life, and tonight he would be, and he would not know why it mattered, but it would. Ginger pear soda, warm, because Brad needed something to hold. This is Senti's signature, if you listen for it. Not ingredient stunts, not volume. Timing and humble precision, and the understanding that food is the prelude to the emotional work, not the work itself. A plate is a threshold. The meal is the invitation to cross it. He returned with the plate. He did not hand it to Brad. He set it on the top step of the porch, between them, and then stepped back.
For you. Every hyena deserves one clean plate.
Brad stared at the plate for long enough that Brent briefly wondered if he had broken him. Then Brad cried. Quietly. the kind you can't schedule. He sat down on the step. He picked up the fork. He ate slowly, which was new for him. He finished everything. He sighed the sigh of a creature setting down something he had not known he was carrying. Then he asked, in a voice much smaller than any voice he had used the night before,
You need a dishwasher?
Senti looked at Glorp, who had appeared at some point in the doorway, holding a ladle for no particular reason.
As long as he doesn't eat the plates.
You won't have to worry about me.
The porch stayed warm that day, not just from the food, but from the lesson, the one the room had been quietly teaching all night, and that Brad had finally been still enough to hear. Strength can launch a hyena into a moss bed, sure, but only grace brings him back. And the door, which had remembered him before he remembered himself, did not close behind him when he went inside. It just stayed open, the way doors do in places that have learned what they are for. Porchlandia is an original work created by Brent Brooks. All stories, characters and music are protected under copyright 2026. All rights reserved. The porch light stays on.